Thanks for coming out, you guys. We appreciate you signing up to our little Van Life 101. My name is Taylor. I'm the Vice President of GoWesty. That's our little company that we have down in Los Osos, little town just outside of San Luis Obispo, California. You guys are probably all familiar with roughly where that is. This is Jad. Jad is our GM. He makes sure everything keeps working every day. Does an awesome job. This is Lucas down here on the end. He's the owner of the company. Stoked he can make it up here with us as well. This type of thing is not something we normally do. We're not professional keynote speakers, but you won't be able to tell that we're not, I'm sure. But basically, we're super stoked to be here to just rap with you guys a little bit about van life and how we're involved in it, and a little bit about our company. Van life was around a long time before we were here, and it's going to be around a long time after us. We're just a very small part of it, but we have a lot of fun being involved and doing what we do. How many of you before today were aware of our company GoWesty? Pretty good. Yeah. So, and how many of you own Volkswagen campers now? Sweet. 2. I would have expected more, but I think that's probably a good indicator of the demographic of this whole van life thing, that people are interested in it, and Volkswagen is a very small part of that. It played and plays a big part in the history, the development of the movement itself. I guess it would be hard to argue that Volkswagen didn't kind of start that thing out. It's the whole culture of traveling around in a vehicle, stuffing as many people as you can in a small space is something that's been around for a really long time. We started our company right around the advent of the internet. The face of business has changed a lot, obviously, in the past 10 to 15 years. When we started out, it was all about paper catalogs and word of mouth and driving around and leaflets on windshields and things like that. And while this whole van life movement type of thing was really in full swing, it couldn't be shared the same way it's being shared now. And that's really the beauty of where we are today. There's people out there doing what they've been doing, but they've got a medium through all this social media to share it and inspire and continue to inspire other people to do similar things and to kind of break from the norm and go out and have adventures and do what brings them joy, but not necessarily at the expense of their jobs. Now more than ever, there's a lot of people out there that are living this kind of van life thing and continuing to work for companies. I'm actually a good example of that. I've been working with GoWesty since the onset, 15 plus years, and about 3 years ago, I had an opportunity to make a slight change. I live and work full-time from New Zealand now. I've got a T5, which is the next generation of vehicle beyond this one. This one here is a T4. It's the 4th generation of bus that Volkswagen made. But it's just a beautiful thing that I can move my family down there, and I can continue to contribute and be a part of what's happening from such a distance. And that's a really exciting opportunity, not only for me, but for everyone else that wants to get away from the 9 to 5 or wants to live in a smaller space and participate in something that has a smaller footprint, that is more in line with one's personal ideals and ethics surrounding the impact that we make, and how we inspire other people to live in a way that might be more in accordance with the environment and all things positive. So we're not really here this weekend to obviously to promote our brand a little bit, but not really to sell anything. The bulk of our business really now is selling parts. We sell all kinds of different great parts to keep these things on the road, and it's really about making it possible for everyone that owns one of these Volkswagen campers to keep it alive, keep it out of the junkyard, keep it going, and keep building memories, you know. And whether you own it for a year or 10 years, we're going to help you keep it going, and we're going to make that experience as positive and as fruitful as it can be for you. And then you might move on to something else and sell that vehicle on to someone else, and the cycle starts over again. And we just love being part of the Volkswagen family. All of us grew up riding around in these things. It was a gift that our parents gave us, and we're just carrying the baton along, and we're going to pass it on to our kids, and our kids are going to keep doing the same thing because they grew up in them, and it's just a beautiful cycle that we're trying to keep going. So I'd like to pass it off to Jad here. He's just going to talk a little bit more about van life, and then we're going to open it up for a little bit of Q&A. So we'd like to get an idea of why you guys signed up for this little talk right now, what you want to know. We'll try and fill in some of the blanks and just see what kind of conversation we can generate through that. So thanks for coming out. We're super stoked to be here, and we're glad that you guys are taking an interest in what we're doing and what everybody out there is doing with this van life thing. So thank you.
So like Taylor mentioned, you know, our business is we're in the business of helping support the van life, and we have a number of, if you're familiar with us, you probably know some of our sponsorships that we have. You know, we help sponsor professional athletes, professional musicians that have chosen this platform to sort of cruise around the country and do their thing. And beyond that, people who are doing things sort of in an altruistic nature. You know, we have a number of projects like the Vanlife group that four professional photographers and videographers piling into one of these vans and cruising all down through Mexico and Central and South America, taking portraits of families and like giving back portraits to the family. They had like a portable photo studio. So we're really interested in helping support the van life movement in that way. So people approach us quite a bit about, you know, how they can get involved, you know, whether they have these vehicles or whether they just have kind of the dream of these vehicles. And what we're typically looking for is kind of like a narrative arc, you know, someone who's, you know, everyone wants to jump in a van with their buddy and go on a surf trip, you know, like we want to do that too, and we do it all the time. But you know, the people that we've chosen to partner with in that respect are people who have something kind of just a little bit beyond that, you know, more of this sort of a story to tell that might be unique. So we spend a lot of time doing that. So while none of us actually live the van life full time, we help support the van life full time. That's all that we do and dream about and talk about, and it's kind of all consuming, you know. All of us own these vehicles. Neither of these vehicles are ours. These are shop vehicles. We thought we'd bring vehicles that were just like a little prettier. All of us beat the shit out of our vans. Yeah, Lucas's van is probably the prime example. Totally beats shit. He really drives the heck out of that thing, and Taylor's is the same way, and so is mine. And all of us have had our families grow up in these vans. You know, the ultimate jungle gym and kind of memory maker. You know, and that's probably the most special thing about. For me, it's the most special thing about van life. Just instead of taking the $12,000 Epcot adventure with your family, you know, you all pile into a van together and you drive across the country and you go to the national parks and you really make memories that are a lot different than the Epcot trip. You know, just much more profound things that will stay with your children, your family, just in a totally different way. You know, so that's kind of the driving force behind what we do and the passion and love that we have for these things. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing as far as van life is concerned. Like Taylor mentioned, we'd love to kind of know what inspired you guys to come to this talk and what you want to know about van life, so we can help you sort it out. You know, anyone have a question or thought about van life? Someone interested in doing it? Yeah. Here, let's give you the mic so you can. be heard. You won't be amplified.
Do you guys get a lot of electric conversions happening now?
Electric conversion?
Yeah.
Look at that. So, do you want to speak to that, Taylor? The electric conversion thing?
Sure, this would be good. You want to rap a little bit about electric?
I'm the technical guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your question was about electrified vans?
Yeah, like making it more sustainable, bringing them,
Yeah, so part of our staff, we've got 50 people at GoWesty right now. And we have a staff, including myself, of 4 engineers, mechanical engineers. And we geek out on these things and all the cool ways we can make these things sustainable long term. We just hired a Cal Poly, fresh out of Cal Poly engineer. He started about 45 days ago. He was the president of the electric car club at Cal Poly. And we have some ideas on the drawing board to employ this latest technology. Everyone right now is relying on Tesla to come up with the battery technology, because that's what it all hinges upon. If we can't get batteries to be an order of magnitude more efficient than they have been, then this whole dream of wide-reaching electric vehicles is probably not going to happen. So we're all hoping that Tesla comes up with not only the technology, but in a way that companies our size can use the technology. They're battery packs. But as far as the idea of doing it, yeah, we're like definitely into that concept.
Is the principal barrier right now range?
The principal barrier to electric cars right now is range, is power storage. Modern cars have just gotten to a point now where they're efficient enough. They're not guzzlers anymore, except for some, I'm not naming names, but no, but clearly none of these things are Priuses. They're large vehicles, and so yeah, the energy storage is the key right now. We're probably our first thing on our drawing board is just to add electric front drive to a Synchro. That'd be a nice way to start. A way you can just add front wheel drive to an all-time rear wheel drive car. And interestingly, that's kind of the latest technology now in the high performance world. Porsche just came out with a supercar that's all rear wheel drive all the time, and it's electric drive front all the time. And it's like the fastest, awesomest thing on the road right now. And then if we all know Tesla is making 2 and 4 wheel drive. So yeah, but that is it. That's the energy storage is what it's all about right now.
Just on a note of that, I think Tesla agreed to give their technology information away, so that people could mimic it, which is really cool. But I also wanted to ask you, because biodiesel is a big popular thing out here, and I know there's a lot of diesel Euro vans. Do you guys have any ideas of how many customers you've had over a year that have diesels that might be doing biodiesel?
So the question is diesel.
Yeah.
First of all, the Tesla has, we're all hoping that they come through and make their stuff open platform, especially the energy storage is a big deal. But your question is about diesels. I've been a diesel fan since the early 80s. I've had diesels pretty much since I started to drive. And the biggest hurdle with diesels right now is politics more than anything. But luckily, this whole electric thing is leapfrogging right over the whole diesel technology. Diesels are, if anybody doesn't know already, a diesel engine is about 40% more efficient than any gasoline engine. That's just the nature of the way they are. And everything in Europe for a long time has been diesel. Why America never got into that is, well, there's all kinds of conspiracies behind that. But whatever it is, it's not going to happen. California is passing laws that are going to make it pretty much impossible for anything but electric to dominate in the next 20 to 30 years. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Do you have an idea how many diesel customers you have?
Volkswagen made diesel Vanagons in Europe through the entire production from 82 to 91. We have no data, and we don't really support the diesel. Actually, we just support the water box or gasoline engine.
Questions on Westphalias? Are they still producing them? If they're not, how do you get your hands on one? And would they possibly produce them in the future?
So the question is Volkswagen still making vans, and campers for that matter? Volkswagen started making vans in '55, and they're up to the Type 6 van. This is Type 3, Type 4, Type 5, and the Type 6. And they never imported the Type 5, and they never imported the Type 6. They've just decided not to come into this market with that. But they're still making them. They make really awesome campers in Europe. Diesel powered. They're 4 and 5 cylinder. They get 30 miles per gallon. They're one of these with all the problems fixed. But I don't see anytime soon they're going to come to the United States. And it's called the California. To rub our noses in a little bit, their badass camper is called the California. And
why wouldn't they come to the United States?
Why don't they sell them in the United States? If you could answer that, I'll give you a job. Right now. Nobody knows. Yes.
That was a one-time offer.
He has the answer as to why Volkswagen.
World War II, it's called, have you guys ever heard of the chicken tax? Basically, when Germany was rebuilding its economy, we were selling chickens to them at a cheaper rate than.
Yeah.
Rehash chicken.
Chicken.
Sorry, guys.
Chicken theory.
I have a 1990 Westy. I love it. I've looked into this. This is why I know this. It's called the chicken tax. We started selling chickens to the Germans after World War II when they were rebuilding. And all the German chicken manufacturers were like, well, why does the U.S. get to sell chickens at a cheaper rate than us? Because we could sell them cheaper for some reason. So they incurred a tax on U.S. chickens. So then when Germany started importing a lot of automobiles, they couldn't put a tax on every single vehicle coming in, so they put them on large commercial vans, and they called it the chicken tax because they got us, so now we got them. And that's true.
To answer to that I've heard that too, but I don't think it applies to this class of van because these aren't big commercial vans. There's a much the main reason they didn't bring in Volkswagens after the T4 is because Honda, Toyota, Nissan, Chevy, all the manufacturers started flooding the market with minivans. We had the minivan craze, the quote soccer craze with kids and all that stuff. So all of these companies flooded the market and squeezed Volkswagen out. And that's just for all vans. Volkswagen had the pop top, and they held on through the 2003 model. They went into cahoots with Winnebago and did these, and they also brought in a Westphalia a weekender version of this through 2003. But then the jig was up. I mean, there was just too much competition, and Volkswagen couldn't make a German-made vehicle that could compete. And forget the pop top. And then another thing that happened in 2003 is Mercedes bought Westphalia and took that avenue away from Volkswagen. And it took Volkswagen about 5 years to retool and make their own camper. And Taylor and I have actually toured their camper facility in, what town was that?
Hanover.
In Hanover. That was amazing. It's the first time Volkswagen has actually made their own campers. Up until that point, they were always Westphalia. Then the Mercedes screwed them out of that. That's another really good story, why Mercedes did that to Volkswagen. And then they came back, and now they make them, but they're so ungodly expensive. The entry-level pop top, which is called a Beach over there, which is their weekender model, is like €65, and which varies depending on the dollar. And their four-wheel drive full campers are about €120, €130. So there's no way that they could sell. They think they can't sell something like that in the United States. So that's my understanding of why they didn't bring this class of van in the United States. But I heard a chicken thing about the commercial stuff. Anything else?
Are we going to hire him?
Sorry.
He's already got a job.
Yeah.
Right on.
Any other questions?
About like van life stuff?
Who else here? Does anyone else here drive something other than a Volkswagen van? Long-term travel. Who has long-term travel, vehicle-based travel, under their belts? What did you drive? What was your vehicle of choice?
We have a converted Aerostar.
Okay. Awesome.
That was just
Yeah. Awesome. So, I think
So the Aerostar is that a Chevy or a Ford?
that's a G.
It's a GM, right?
It's a Ford. It's a Ford Aerostar.
Aerostar.
Ford.
Which is the Chevy? Which is the Chevy van? Astro van.
Astro van is the Chevy one. Right. Well, I think
But it's great. It was really simple. We just took out the back seats, built a platform that's
right.
high enough to put bins under, and
Yeah.
a Thule on top, and
Yeah.
always have a tent that we basically just use as a vestibule to store shit and
Right.
keep things dry.
Yeah. I think that we probably all of us could agree that the Volkswagen Bus Icon is something that I personally, and most people I speak to, have a hard time remembering a time when they didn't recognize that shape, or that the silhouette of the bus with the top up, or the smiley face coming at you down the road, the googly eyes. That's something that spoke to us when we didn't even know it, and a lot of us, I would say pretty much every one of us here, kind of grew up with that, and this sense of what that vehicle represented, even if you never owned one. The inspiration is there. I mean, and you see it everywhere. You can't go into a Trader Joe's or a Target or anywhere. Anyone that's trying to advertise something that is that they want to be cool, what do they use for imagery? 9 times out of 10, there's a Volkswagen camper on there. But it's not the most accessible and appropriate platform for living that kind of lifestyle.
They agree. Yeah.
Hawk, brother. So
Validated by the Hawks.
So we have a lot of people that come to us and say, hey, we just found out about you guys, or they share their Volkswagen story. My dad, my uncle, my best friend in college, somebody I knew had a Volkswagen, and we made all these great memories in it and had all these great trips and stuff. And I want to own one too. There's a lot of problems with that because there aren't a ton of these things around, and they're not bringing in anything new to keep feeding the market. So these vehicles, there's fewer and fewer and fewer of them available, and over the past 10 to 15 years, they've gotten more and more popular, and naturally the value has gone up. We've built a ton of vans for people. Back when we started our business, they were plentiful. They were everywhere. They were kind of the bastard child of the Volkswagen family at that point. Volkswagen themselves had really abandoned the whole idea of the bus. They were all about modern cars, modern everything. They didn't want to have anything to do with us and what we were doing. They didn't want to know about those cars. They didn't want to supply parts for those vehicles. And
They even sued us once for putting their Volkswagen emblem on our Yellow Page ad.
so what I did was I changed the V into a G,
Voila.
and they haven't sued us again.
I don't see any.
So
Don't tell anyone about that.
yeah, no, yeah, you can blur that out for later. But when people, that's it. So when we talk to people about these vehicles, obviously we're promoting the lifestyle, we're promoting our brand, we're kind of continuing this whole Volkswagen amazing van life type of thing, but we're also trying to put the brakes on it and be transparent about what it means to own one of these things. They're not for everyone. They're not attainable just for everyone. I mean, there's not enough of them out there. They've become quite rare. They're expensive to buy, and they're expensive to go through and make reliable again. I was having a conversation with some people earlier, and we were talking about, well, if you pick up a 25-year-old Honda Civic for $2,500 and you decide to drive it coast to coast, you might have some issues. And we all think of the Honda Civic as like the quintessential vehicle that you can do anything to and it'll always get you there. And most of the time it does. But with these vehicles here, they do have kind of a bad rap. Some people say, you see these horrible images online of them bursting into flames and, doing all these things and causing all these problems for people. And the interesting thing is, if you buy everything from us, you won't have any of those problems. If you go through all of the shortcomings, we have an answer for, essentially. But that means going through the vehicle and putting quite a bit of money into it and replacing things like fuel lines. 25-year-old fuel lines are, they're going to give you a problem, but we have a kit for that. And those are things you should do on any vehicle, not just the Volkswagen. But I guess what I'm getting at is there's so many other platforms that may not have the the historical kind of van life chops that the Volkswagen has. You know, not every vehicle, you roll through a town in the middle of nowhere, you're driving a Volkswagen, it's like coming in with the white flag up, you know, and you get peace signs, and people are very welcoming. You know, it is true that very few vehicles out there open doors like Volkswagen campers do. You know, I've never met an asshole driving a Volkswagen. Actually, well, sorry, I didn't mean to look at you. There's a few of them out there, but by and large, Volkswagen people are great people. You know, and it's kind of it's a truism.
Have anybody here seen the Bus movie? That's a great movie. It's a documentary about the history of the bus. Really great movie.
Yeah, fun film. If you're interested, it's a worthy watch for sure. But that kind of leads into what we do while we want to promote our business. The conversations that we have with people are really about trying to figure out, do you belong behind the wheel of one of these things? We'll be straight up and say, you know, they're not for everyone. The vehicle themselves, they weed out the, you know, the real the people that have the real heart. You know, if they really have their heart in it, and if they don't, they pass it on to someone who does. You know, so they always seem to end up in the right hands. But we do spend a fair bit of time, you know, really trying to bring people down to earth and kind of back to reality of what it means to own one of these things, because there's 20, 30, 40 other platforms out there that are more modern. You know, they're newer, they're more spacious, they're more reliable, they're, you know, all of those things. There's lots of other options that give you a lot more bang for your buck. And that's really what van life is all about. To circle back, we're really about just that little narrow Volkswagen wedge of the market. It's what we love, it's what we do. But we're totally open to the fact that we're just a little part of a much bigger thing that's happening that we also love. We really love meeting people like Gretchen and Taylor, the other Taylor, the imposter. We love meeting people that are living the kind of lifestyle that we try and live, and it doesn't matter what they're driving. Here in the back.
I have a question. So, let's say, hypothetically speaking, you live in a situation like, nah, screw that, I'm over it. I'm about to get in that van life. How much is it going to cost to get the most baseline van, and what are the items inside the van, most basic, that I'd want?
That's a great.
Like a two-part question.
That's a great question, man.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. If you're talking specifically about wanting to get into the van life in a Volkswagen, you'd first be looking at what specific type of model you would be drawn to. You know, a lot of people are drawn to the earlier vehicles. We've got a great article on our website called "Am I a Vanagon or a Eurovan Person?" and it really breaks down the pros and cons of each model. Everything has a shortcoming somewhere, and we try and break that down for people to try and help steer them to the right vehicle in the first place. And it's pretty straightforward. You know, it's like if you're driving the I-5, okay, you know, if you've got to run the I-5 for X number of hours to get anywhere, and you know traffic's blowing by you at 85, 90, and you want to keep up with traffic, and you want to have ice blowing out the dash with the AC cranking, and you know, if you want all those things, cruise control and all that stuff, you might want to be in a Eurovan. You know, you might want to have some modern horsepower and, you know, working for you. That's not to say these things can't go that quick and do those things as well, but it puts a lot more stress on an older package like that. So really it comes down to trying to determine what makes sense for you. How are you going to use the vehicle? Had another conversation with some folks earlier, and it just comes down to logistics. You know, if you've got 3 kids and 2 dogs, you know, you're not going to travel in something really small, or maybe you do, but you make some sacrifices to be in a vehicle like that. It's a lot more work. You might be looking at something like a bigger vehicle like the Ford chassis. So all of those things really But to get back to your question about what does it cost, once you know what vehicle you're looking at, then you start looking around in the used market and see what people are asking for these things. What we found is the private market for these vehicles has just gone through the roof in the past decade, and a lot of people feel like we're partially to blame for that. When we started our business, most of these people were crushing these things. When the engine would die, they would give them away. People would call us and say, "Hey, I've got this Westphalia thing, whatever. It's dead. It's in my driveway. Do you want it?" We say, "Well, where are you?" "Oh, we're in Portland." "Well, we'll send a truck for it," and we truck it down, and it would be just the cost of shipping to get it to us. Those times are long since passed. Everybody, you go on Craigslist anytime and you look at a Vanagon, and you find a Vanagon that's pretty rough. Maybe it's a hard top, it's not even a camper, doesn't run, whatever, and they want 13 grand for it. And it's like, whatever they're smoking, share it because it's good, And so it's really, there's a lot of people that are operating in kind of this inflated market, and they're trying to get top dollar. If we build a van and we've gone through it tip to tail, we're totally transparent about what it costs. If we build a van and we resell it, it's like, we bought it for this amount, we mark it up 10 to 20%. Time and materials, it is what it is. This is what it costs. If it costs $85,000, someone will look at that and go, "Oh, well, here's one that's done for $85,000. My van's pretty sweet. It must be worth $45,000." Maybe we bought the base vehicle for 10 grand. It's that kind of thing. So it's about buying right the first time. Making sure that you're actually you're starting with the right vehicle. Something that isn't rusty and crashed and just not a good platform to do your build on. Getting the right vehicle and not overpaying for it. So if sometimes we're kind of blunt with people when we say, there's a million ways to say it, but if you're on a tight budget, one of these things probably isn't for you. And I know that can come across as like elitist and stuff, but it's just the market that we're operating in now. These things cost a lot of money to get into. There's still some gems out there. If you look hard and you jump on a deal right away when you see it, there's some great vans out there to get. If you like this body style, a Vanagon, and it's a camper, I would expect to pay at least 10 or 15 grand to get into something that needs to be totally overhauled. And I would expect to put a minimum of another 10 to 15 in it, There's a joke, well, maybe I shouldn't share it, but sometimes we say, what's more reliable than a Vanagon? Two Vanagons,
That's why we take multiple ones to Mexico.
To make sure we all come back. Yeah. So yeah, does that kind of cover your question there?
One part of it.
Part one.
Part one.
Second part, what's like
Oh.
gear, like the kit and setup?
Right. Well, the main, if we're talking about this body style here, they came with little teeny tiny wheels and tires, so they don't handle that great. So one of the first things we do is put a bigger wheel and tire package on it. Just spread that load out and give you some proper handling, good shock absorbers, things like that. We build higher performance engines for these things, taking the same original engine and making it larger displacement. So all the original parts bolt onto it, all the peripherals is the same. None of that stuff has to change, but it just makes more power. Just kind of helps you keep up with traffic better. Back when these things came out, everyone was doing 45, 55, and it's almost unsafe at times to be out on like the I-5 and people are ripping by you at 90 miles an hour.
We're up to 58 now.
62 with a tailwind. Yeah. So yeah, it's just there's some things like that, and then we've got plenty of other kit. If you're talking about a full camper, the original little 3-way fridges that came in them are really problematic. They don't cool, they don't get the beer cold enough, so we delete those and put in more modern, like compressor-driven fridges like these Engel units here, things like that. But it's all pretty standard stuff, and it's an approach you can employ on any vehicle, not just one of these things. Any platform, and any box on wheels can make a great road tripping machine. And it really comes down to how creative you want to get with that interior space.
Yeah, did they make these
Well, there's another model that is known as the Weekender, and that's kind of a scaled back version of a camper. They still have the pop tops. You have the bed up top. Instead of the whole galley in the back there, sink, stove, fridge, all that stuff, that's deleted, and the campers just have a 2-person bench seat in the back. The Weekender has the bench seat goes side to side, so you can buckle an extra person in there. Then there's 2 rear-facing jump seats and a flip-up table. My vehicle is a Weekender, and that was better for me. I have 3 kids, so you have to have somewhere to put them. You can't. It's not legal to put them up in the luggage rack anymore. So the Weekender is a great layout. I mean, a lot of people are taking passenger vans and just doing their own custom interiors as well, that type of thing. And it just, again, it comes back to how many people you need to move.
But your specific question about whether they can be gotten for less money, it's not so. Anything with a pop top is going to command
especially.
The pop top, but it's one of these models, and it's just a passenger van.
Yep.
Maybe a fold-out table.
Oh, the hard. You mean a non-pop top?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they made a version called a Wolfsburg edition and a Karat, and it was basically a Weekender without the pop top. Those can still be had for less money than anything with a pop top. But then you're faced with the same mechanical issues. These vehicles are all 25, 30 years old, and so that's why we don't build many of those, because there's lots of vans you can buy without a pop top that'll get the job done for a fraction of the cost. So we only spend the resources that we put into these into something with a pop top.
Any other van life questions? You haven't spoken. Yeah.
How do these solar panels work, and how well do they work? How long will they charge a fridge and fans that you need in the interior and anything else, music or something? And I wanted to ask them that same question too.
So the question is these solar panels and how long they'll run something. Yeah. The first thing is solar panels are rated by watts. That one there is an 80-watt panel, and they don't actually run anything directly. What they do is they fill your battery, and your battery runs whatever it is you want to run. And the way you figure out how long, everything that consumes power has a watt-hour rating, and you just figure out how many watt-hours are in your battery, and you look at how much power you have in your battery, right? And then that thing can produce, in perfect conditions like today, it's producing 80 watts. So you just kind of do the math and figure that out. But typically speaking, that panel will keep the battery in this van completely full and run that fridge right there. Stereo, lights, and then by the time the morning comes along, where you've had 8 or 10 hours of no daylight, the battery's about half depleted. Then during the day, it pumps it back up, and you can go on that way. You can go indefinitely like that. If you add more consumers, like outdoor lighting or a really powerful stereo, then you might have to get a bigger solar panel or a bigger battery or another battery. So solar panels they charge batteries. That's what they do. And a panel that big will overcharge. It'll fill this battery up, and then it won't be doing anything for 4 hours out of the day. If you want more stored power, you get more batteries.
Do you guys sell something like that, like a alternative battery?
Yeah, we sell sealed lead acid batteries and complete second battery kits. They're designed to fit Volkswagens, but they are quite universal. They can work on anything you want to add a second battery and a solar panel to.
Just to speak to that question a little bit, just so you guys know, this is kind of an interesting thing. So, like when we do Baja trips, with multiple vans heading down, we typically head down to Baja, and then we're on the highway for a very short amount of time, and then we are directly to the coast, either side, where we don't see other humans for 10 or 14 or 21 days. So, a solar panel like that will keep, like my van, which is a Weekender model, with a fridge like this and lights and music and things like that, totally off the grid indefinitely, so it's pretty amazing, actually. I mean,
you don't need much more than that for a vehicle of this size.
Yeah, and it's that's one of the things that it makes the solar panel system, like that setup, kind of indispensable for people running van life. Another thing is we sponsor a group called Where's My Office Now? Has anyone seen those guys? They create a lot of content. They're pretty amazing. So their whole thing was kind of to flip the idea of the standard 9-to-5 job, You know, they basically work and live from the road, and they've been doing that for 3.5 years, solid. You know, and they live the van life. That's what they do, and they have a system, you know, just like this, basically, and that allows them to. Emily is a web designer, so she does tons of web design and work for contracts and stuff. Corey's like a mountain bike guide, but they are totally off the grid and independent, and have been for this whole time. So this kind of system powers that whole way of living, you know. Yeah. Oh, what is the solar panel? I think that setup is it? I think it's even less now. Yeah. I think it's like maybe $350 for that setup. Yeah.
And that's the panel and the case, and it comes with a 50-foot cord. One of the things a lot of people ask us, why don't you just bolt the thing on the roof of the van instead of having it portable? That's the way we started with solar panels. We were fixing them to the roof, and then we realized that the sun moves. Hey, you know, and your van doesn't. So having it portable makes it so you can soak up 3 or 4 times the power by facing it towards the sun all day long. It's a really big deal. And the cord length is key. The 50 feet of cord means you can park in the shade and have your panel out in the sun. And then it also comes with this really nifty high efficiency controller. Gives you power readout and feeds the battery properly and all that.
I got a question to kick back to you guys. Does anyone here live in a tiny home or a kind of a non-vehicle based tiny environment, small home type thing? Pseudo, kind of. Okay.
Syra was telling us. Has anybody met Syra? She's involved with these. She lives in a little apartment about the size of that Ford. The way she was describing it, it's so small in San Francisco. She's just gone up. She's got her bed at the top and all of her clothes and below that, and it's a little tiny space.
Yeah, this it's just kind of curious to me because the van life thing is very closely related to this tiny house movement that is so popular, and it's always interesting to follow up with people that think they're really into it until they do it, and there's a big part of the van life is just highly romanticized. There is a lot of beauty and adventure and awesomeness to it, but there's also, you know, anytime you spend a lot of time in close quarters with people that maybe you really cared about at the beginning, you know, that it can change over time. But it's it's not, you know, it really, again, it isn't for everyone, and it's really important, I think, before people get into it, to seek out people that rent these vehicles and get a taste for these things and spend some time on the road, an extended period of time if you can, to see if actually living in a small space, you know, if it's something that if it only gets you, you know, by the end of the week, if you can't wait to get out of that thing and get home, then clearly it's not for you. And some people just love that tiny footprint, and being in something existing in a small space that forces you to really take a close look at who you are as a person and who you are to other people, and the gear that you bring with you, and the necessities of life. And it's a great exercise to downscale and shed things that maybe you never use, and all of those things. And people that move into these vehicles get to go through that. And it's a really cool way to hit the reset button. But it's no fun to go through that and then realize that it's totally not for you. So this would probably be a great time to hand it over here to Gretchen and Taylor with Rome Rentals, because renting these vehicles, any kind of vehicle, is just a great way to get yourself into it. And one more question from the back.
Yeah, we can come back to it.
Pardon me? What was the question? Oh, Subaru Conversion, whack. Yeah. What? There's
It's a riot, dude! Run!
Well, you know, that's a question that could take quite a while to explain why we think it's whack, but the Subaru Conversion would pertain to this platform here. They came from the factory with a little 2.1 liter 4-cylinder motor, fairly anemic. Does a really good job actually of moving something so big and brick shaped around. I mean, it really does a beautiful job, but by modern standards, it's just not powerful enough. The whole flat four, if anyone that's familiar with Subaru engines, they're also flat engines. Instead of having the pistons moving in an upright direction, they're flat and they move in an outboard direction like that. Subaru basically got the design from Volkswagen and modernized it. So Subaru offers these engines that fit into these things really nicely. There's a lot of great arguments for doing a Subaru conversion. They're more modern and they can be more reliable, but they also have some of their own inherent shortcomings. Every Subaru motor pretty much that's been put out has had head issues, head gasket issues. Some of them don't. That's not entirely true, but there's enough of kind of jumping from the pan into the fire with a Subaru conversion. It's not all roses. It's expensive. There's an argument that if once you do a conversion, if that engine fails, you can go to a junkyard and just grab another one cheap, you know. And so it's kind of 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But at the end of the day, we're Volkswagen guys. We like German hardware. Putting a Japanese engine in one of these things is just, we may as well just call it quits and do something else, you know. Yeah, exactly. If we're gonna replace it with something else, it's gonna be a Volkswagen product, you know. So.
Yeah, I mean, one just to tag onto that, you know, in the real life practicality, like if you are traveling cross country in one of these vans and you break down in Kansas, you know, the chances of a mechanic looking at your van and going like, holy shit, I haven't seen one of these in 10 years is really high. And, you know, it takes longer to get the parts and get it fixed. If it has a Subaru engine in it, you know, now you're like twice removed from this. And now the mechanic is super confused because, you know, now it's kind of this Frankenstein's monster. So that's the other real pragmatic reason that we don't subscribe to the Subaru conversion. It makes them less, overall, it makes them less reliable as a kind of a cross-country touring vehicle. If you live close to your mechanic who installed it and they can tune it for you and fix it when it breaks, it's a pretty good platform. But otherwise, it really becomes very challenging. And we've had some very high-profile sponsorships that, you know, where we've helped outfit their rigs and really ruggedize their rigs for the road, and big trips through South America, you know, pretty arduous adventures that have had Subaru conversions, and they have broken on the road.
Yeah, not a single one of them has come back.
Yeah,
with the same engine in it.
And they have become stranded for not just days or weeks, but sometimes months, waiting for the Subaru parts to come in. I mean, they become, you know, less about the adventure and more about just chilling in a junkyard waiting for the shit to come in. You know, so that's another reason that we don't subscribe to that. So just to kind of tag on to what you're saying.
Yeah, and another element to driving a vintage Volkswagen is when you do break down, oftentimes those are those precious moments that you remember moving forward, and they're good things. You meet people you wouldn't have met. Everybody that has spent any time in one of these things or around them or knows someone that has, some of their best stories are about how they broke down somewhere, where they broke down, how they got out of that pickle, and the kind of the adventure that surrounded that event. And that's a really neat little aspect of it. You know, of course, we want everybody to get from A to B in one piece and on time, you know, but that's kind of one of the things that weeds people out too. There's some people that can settle for no less than total reliability, and maybe they belong in a brand new vehicle every year, you know. Maybe they're the guys that lease stuff and whatever, or they rent something more modern for that short period of time that they need it. You know, how many people go camping 10 or 12 times a year and really need one of these things parked in the driveway the whole time? You know, maybe you're only going once or twice and you may as well rent something. And if it gives you any grief, you wash your hands of it and move on, you know. But sitting around the campfire talking to people that have Volkswagen stories, the best ones are all about the breakdowns, which is something that is a lot of fun. It's not always a lot of fun in the moment for that person, but there's just a huge, amazing silver lining in it most of the time.
And it's inevitable, pretty much.
And it's inevitable.
If anybody wants to crawl in these things when Taylor and I forgot Gretchen finish, you're welcome to. Just clean up after yourself.
Right. Okay.
Thanks, guys. This is Gretchen. I'm Taylor. We founded Roam, which is a company that rents these in Portland, Oregon. A couple things I want to chat about with you guys. If you're interested in renting, come talk to us. But more importantly, van life is kind of a bigger metaphor for being a dirtbag. So it's really important that we find a real easy way to transition into comfort dirtbag living. So we really stumbled upon a van just out of looking for the ultimate experience and being comfortable in those really crappy conditions. So this is like black belt level. We started out as white belts in like Ford Escorts and Honda Civics, and we slowly realized that through time we can have some comfort, but not everybody's going to be able to hop in to a brand new van or even a used Westfalia and be able to make it happen. So we got a couple hacks for you guys to make life a little bit easier. Is that something you guys are interested in? Cool. A couple things: shelter, water, and food. Basically, this is car camping. This isn't anything that is stuff that nobody's really done before. Has everybody here car camped? We're kind of doing it right now, except we've got hotels, cabins, really nice. Which is pretty nice. So really it's shelter. So what season are we in? Are we in winter? Are we in summer? Right now it's pretty much like summer, so we can be outside and we can be pretty comfy. If we're starting to talk about long-term travel, going to ski resorts, being in rainy areas, that's when having a pickup or a wagon is pretty nice, where you can literally hop into your rig and be comfortable. So whether you have a tent or an awning or even a tarp is a good thing to kind of keep on check, so when the weather does come in, you can be protected. But most importantly, food and water, because if you've got crappy weather and you're wet and you're hungry and thirsty, you're really pissed. Everybody's having a bad time. So a couple
We've all been there probably, right?
Yeah, exactly. So water is a big one. If you look right behind Lucas over here, he's got a little water jug with a pump on it. Running water in any vehicle you want. So you can buy one of those little pumps for about 30 bucks and buy one of those 5-gallon containers and strap that to the back of your wagon and you have running water. We get dirty, we want to be clean. A Helio shower, has anybody ever seen a Helio shower? It's a bag that stretches, you got a little pump, and it's got a little kitchen sprayer on it. Genius for doing dishes, taking a quick shower, put it in the sun. That is also an awesome way of making sure your trip is fun and happy. Of course, you've got bins, which is really nice. You want to pile everything in areas where you can actually sleep, but also access stuff. So those are things that really definitely help over time. We slept in wagons for a long time, back SUVs, all sorts of interesting configurations. In warm environments, there are lots of bugs. And that is one of the most difficult things to deal with, because you want the windows down, but it's hot as hell and steamy in there. And you can't roll the windows down and get a bunch of bugs in there. They make something called skeeter beaters, which is this magnetic screen that goes over the front of your window. So you can roll your windows down and then you have air flowing throughout, so you can actually enjoy being inside your car.
Genius. Which
is pretty nice. So that makes a huge difference. And then lastly, food. Coolers are awesome, but they're really good for beer and liquids. Ice melts. Even these nice fancy Yeti coolers and everything like that hold ice for a long time, but things get ruined really quickly. And then everybody's pissed because everybody's hungry. You're low in sugar. These little plug-in refrigerator freezers are all time. They plug directly into your cigarette lighter, and then you can freeze stuff, you can keep things cold, and everything stays dry. So those three things, you'd pretty much be into the van life, car camping, go exploring lifestyle for probably under $1,000. And that's gonna make a huge difference on kind of your comfort. And then you get into vehicles, like we had a question about before. If you're gonna actually invest in something to live in, any one of these vans work great. You can get a beater old Ford Econoline van for like 3,000 bucks and strip it out, build a platform bed, buy your water pump, your cooler, and your skeeter beater screens, and you are officially a dirtbag. Yeah. So you guys will be stoked. And you'll be clean because you got a little shower as well. So That's my 5-minute spiel. If you want to climb inside the van, come on, check it out.
You guys have any questions about just like tips on like food, how cooking, or yes?
I do a lot of camping,
Mm-hmm.
and not usually car camping. Not that I'm backpacking, but it's usually not. There's no bathrooms a lot of the time when
Yep.
we go camping, beach camping, things like that. How would you guys compare it to a van life? Like as far as like ease and comfort, is it significantly easier to do long term than camping, or is it about the same?
Me personally, significantly easier.
Okay.
We like to move around a lot when we're camping. We're very much the type that we want to go see what's over there, and we just keep going and we keep going and keep going. So the fact that we don't have to pack up camp
Yeah.
every day or every night is huge for us. Another thing too is what makes it easy for us personally is when we are driving, we don't have to pull over, unpack anything to get to food, to get to gear. We can, like on our drive down here, middle of the day, I'm like, I'm starving. You want some PB&Js? I literally just unbuckle, walk in the back, make sandwiches, walk back, hand them a sandwich, and we're still going. So that alone makes it really easy, and that takes the stress off of the camping portion of it, just so it makes the adventure portion of it, wherever we're going, that much more fun, right? We can get to the hiking and the biking and the surfing that much more like stress-free because we weren't having to worry about a lot of stuff. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes. Yeah. I think step one is, what do you want to use the van for? Is it everything? Is it mountain biking, surfing, hiking, living out of for a month? Or are you just into, the backpacking portion of it? So prioritize what the purpose of the van is. For us, it's hard because it's everything. So we've been through a lot of van conversions because every season we're like, where are we going to put the skis? Like, we kind of forgot about that in the middle of the summer. So Taylor is my genius carpenter here, and he's rebuilt the interior of our own personal van
3 times.
a few times.
3 times.
So he has, I'll pass it over because he has a lot of tips.
Yeah, that's perfect. Really, this configuration, the GoWesty configurations here, they're pretty all-time because you've got seat facing forward, and that converts like a futon into a bed. So you can have swivel chairs that turn around, so you've got a chilling area if it's rainy and gnarly out. And then you put it into sleep mode and you got a bed. That is pretty awesome. It depends a lot on the vehicle. If you're actually building out a van or a truck or stuff like that, really think hard about what your focus is and what you're going to be using it for. If it's literally just a base camp at a trailhead for hiking, you're setting it up for cooking and sleeping and be able to access your boots and things like that. If you're talking about, surfing, skating, dirt bikes, mountain bikes, any of those things, that adds a whole nother element because you got stinky wetsuits, you got dirty mountain bike clothes, you've got boots and gear covered in snow. So you're going to want an area to stash that. It's really important to find a little area where you can get all that stuff undressed and then be able to put it in a stinky proof bin and then get that out of the way so you can hop in and keep the rest of your little environment clean. So look online, check out these vans. There's a lot of different configurations. Usually when it comes to home built, there's going to be just a platform bed in the back with bins underneath and then a little area kind of in the between right behind the sliding doors that are going to be kind of your entry exit chilling areas, maybe cooking if you have to do that kind of stuff. Yep.
How important do all of you guys think four-wheel drive is for most like van adventures?
Not very.
But for us, very.
Yeah.
If you
To
have,
confuse you.
Yeah. If you have the four-wheel drive, if you don't have four-wheel drive, you're not going to really push it, right? So you're not going to get into that much trouble. If you have four-wheel drive, you're like, well, we have four-wheel drive. Like, what's the worst that can happen? We'll pop it into 4-low and we'll be fine. So for us, it's important because we always just kind of want to go that much further and get away from the crowds. So we do use the four-wheel drive on our personal van, quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this van here is 2-wheel drive, And this is actually a rental. And a lot of questions when we first started the company was, how many four-wheel drive, vehicles do you have? And once people actually get into the van and they are done with their trip, it's never been an issue. They haven't asked about the four-wheel drive. They didn't attempt anything. They always got to where they needed to go and were completely safe. So it kind of just depends on your style a little bit. And budget.
Yeah.
That's a big one too.
Yeah, be honest about where you're going to go. I mean, if you're going to Baja, if you're going to be going to ski areas, things like that, those are areas where four-wheel drive is going to be worth it, without a doubt. Getting stuck once is definitely a story, which is great 24 hours later when you're safe. But when you're in a scenario where you're in the middle of nowhere and you're stuck trying to push it to a campsite or some area you want to check out, it can be tough. It can definitely be tough. Good driving skills, good tires, and momentum can help you out a lot. And yeah, it definitely is nice to have when you do go exploring. Like if you look at the GoWesty banner right here, an awesome shot of 3 four-wheel drive Vanagons cruising in Baja. I'm pretty sure they're probably in four-wheel drive 90% of the time. So if you want to be away from everyone, if you're more into everybody familiar with the term overlanding? You guys heard of that? It's basically car camping, but you have like big meaty tires and you go off-road. That is somewhere where you're going to want to actually have four-wheel drive, where you're going to get as far away from any type of civilization as possible. So I know a lot of people in Baja that run this very similar van with a limited slip in the back and decent tires, and they get stuck every now and again, but they're in pretty good shape. A lot of it comes down to skill and location. But in Baja, if you have two-wheel drive, you will not be camping on the beach. So how much is that a factor in the tranquility of your trip? Because 100 yards from the beach is very different from being on the beach. For us, that's worth it, without a doubt. Some people, they're like, how much for four-wheel drive? No, I'm good. So.
I see the refrigerator outside and a table outside. Do you either group have any suggestions on extending kitchen and cooking space, food storage?
Yeah, definitely. We're a big fan of cooking outside, because anytime you cook inside, all your food, all of the moisture and everything, it ends up stinking everything up. There will be times you have to cook inside when it's just storming outside. As far as car camping in general, so what these guys are sitting in here, these are great chairs that pack up super small. This table right here packs up super small. These guys have a bunch of stuff on their website that also packs up super small. So if you can actually be able to cook outside and be comfortable, but be able to pack things up and have it be small, that's a really good option. So like the bags, the Chilbo Baggins bags, those things are a game changer. I mean, you can pack that up into a little itty bitty spot in your car, and then look at the lounging you guys are. I mean, this is like, talk about black belt level.
Yeah.
So.
And along those same lines, having an awning shelter is super key, no matter what you're driving. I even see little passenger cars with roof racks and little awnings on them, and just being able to get out of that little bit of rain, getting out of the sun, is huge. And if that means you can also get out of your car and make up a nice French press coffee or whatever, just getting yourself some shelter so you can make some food, or just hang out and be out of the car when it's too hot or too rainy. So there's a bunch of different manufacturers out there that make awnings that range anywhere from really simple to set up. It's usually the simpler they are to set up, the more expensive they are. This particular awning is a crank out version. It retails for about $1,000, but one person can set it up in 30 seconds. So it means if you've got something like that, you're going to use it all the time because it's easy to set up. It doesn't take 2 people, it doesn't take 15 minutes. If you just want to pull over somewhere, crank it out, get out of the sun, do your thing, and be on your way 20 minutes later, you might want something like that. But it's a more of an investment. Everything's got a bit of a trade-off, but there's awnings that you can get for as cheap as $200, and that doesn't mean they're junk. There's some great awnings out there that are $200, $250. We retail both those types of awnings, and they serve different functions. But going back to your question earlier about what's like the top few pieces of kit, an awning, got to have those things. Once you have one, you'll never want to travel in any kind of vehicle, car camp or van camp or anything like that without one. So back to you.
Cool. Anything else? Is this thing on? Yeah, 4 is pretty comfy. We've had families come from Europe and things like that they'll be a family of 5, but they'll have 3 small kids, and they'll sleep upstairs. Parents will sleep downstairs. Definitely come in and check it out. Please run in and out, look in all the drawers, see what's going on. That's one thing when we actually started van lifing it, when we got out of the back of a Tacoma, we really took a lot of time and looked at other people's setups, because you can find these little tricks that you're like, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, you can easily sleep 4 relatively decent sized adults. We're kind of on the small side, so we fit in there pretty well. But big people like those guys, they could probably cuddle together pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, a spoon.
I have a family of 5, so does he, and we both travel in these all the time.
Yep.
So 10 of you guys in this thing? That's good.
Yeah, we jump in. A lot of shuffling.
Yeah.
So yeah, my family, I have three children, and it's tight. As the children get older, we might have to look for some other solutions. But right now it's a very cozy kind of sleeping environment, so it works well.
Any other questions?
All right, well, thanks for coming out, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out. Grab as many highball energy drinks as you want, and thank you.